Hi, I'm Amy Burbidge. I'm the design manager for the Northamptonshire Joint Planning Unit. And my talk's generally more generally just about housing, not just affordable housing, but I'll probably touch on that a little bit as well. Gone the wrong way. There we go. Just giving you a little bit of a context of Northants. The picture on the right is from our core strategy, and you can see the three main towns are Corby, Kettering and Wellingborough. They've all got little funny appendages on the side in that plan, and they denote urban extensions which are approved in all of those locations. You can see the scale of growth, 52,000 homes identified in the core strategy in the 20 years up to 2021, 44,000 jobs. Outside of London, I think this is probably the biggest number of urban extensions that are all consented in one overall authority. Extra 100,000 people. There are design policies in the core strategy which set out the overall framework. I'll go on to that. So the joint core strategy was prepared by 4 local authorities working together, which is still relatively unusual, though it's something that government really loves. It's Kettering, Wellingborough, East Northampton, Corby. They have a joint committee that prepared the core strategy and a joint technical unit, known as the Joint Planning Unit, which I'm part of, that actually did the legwork of writing it. And then the districts themselves still retain development control, so they just retain the decisions on those individual urban extensions and all the other applications, and they write the other documents that sit underneath the core strategy. There was a real ambition within the core strategy to have a massive step change in quality and the sort of idea of the highest standards of design. But set against that was the kind of reality. CABE's East Midlands housing audit identified big problems. Over half the developments are identified as poor and no schemes are identified as good when they assessed it back in 2006. And so the design programme started in 2007, and it was quite unusual. It was a partnership between CABE back then, the Arts Council and the Joint Planning Unit to effectively fund my post and to set up a sort of system to draw the 4 local authorities together to think about design quality and to provide some urban design advice. When I started, there was one in-house urban designer across all 4 local authorities just working for one of them. And that person now is part-time. There's also me and an extra person, but we have 2 landscape officers across 4 local authorities. Only one of the 4 local authorities has a conservation officer. So this just gives you the idea. They're all quite small local authorities. They have quite small populations currently. They're all districts, and they have got a massive, massive level of growth. So it's quite an interesting challenge. So in order to try and get around this issue of one person trying to deal with 4 local authorities and a lot of development, we set up this thing called design surgeries, which was an idea I pinched from Urban Design London, actually, where it's effectively a kind of a roving group of, like a development team group that goes to each of the local authorities monthly, looking at pre-applications work. It's multidisciplinary. We have a highways officer from the county council, we have urban design, we have our police crime prevention design advisors, we have a landscape person and the case officer. And you all get around the table, and it's kind of the negotiation between all those different parties. Some of the local authorities invite applicants to come, some of them keep it completely in-house and then report back. But it was a way really of getting through a lot of applications and discussion pretty quickly. If I was to write formal observations on all the applications that are coming through from 4 local authorities, I would never ever get through everything. And it's also a way of me picking off what's the most important things that I can then spend more time on, or identify what things could go to design review as well. It's kind of an early warning for me. We were successful in getting money from the CLG Site Delivery Fund about 18 months ago. Principally, I think, because of this joint working arrangement, they could see that actually there was a way of getting to 4 local authorities with a lot of growth through one body. And that's allowed us to bring in extra capacity to help on design support, particularly on sort of strategic landscape and sustainable construction and SUDs. And we've been using the local architecture centre, which is open in our instance. We've been using their design review panel members. They've been able to come in and help us on specific things at specific times, which has been really good. This is kind of, having seen Andy's lovely pictures, this is the reality, I suppose, of working outside London, of the kind of things that we're constantly seeing, and just the little incremental changes that we're trying to push for to try and make things better. On the left-hand side, there's a scheme in Corby. The scheme, as it originally appeared, had lots of objections from the police and from local residents. The scheme did front onto the main road, but there were no links, so you wouldn't know that the other side of the road, that's where the main shopping centre is that everyone wants to get to. It was all back gardens onto the street and lots of nice, easy access for your to break into your back garden and in through your garage, a really unpleasant street environment. So it went through design surgery. Not only do we say what we don't like, but we quite often will say, we think you should do this. Not that this is the only way to do it, but we think you should do this, because actually, unless you do that, you don't really get many changes. And they did listen and they changed things around. This scheme is by no means perfect, but it's so much better. We have houses fronting the street. We have people actually able to get to the shops that they're nearby. And this is what it ended up looking like. So it's not going to win any architectural prizes, but it's good basic housing that fronts onto the street, that is providing safe, overlooked streets. People are actually sitting out on the street with their own little bench, which is a good thing. And you have a path to the shops. We, from having done this design surgeries for a number of years, we were getting frustrated that we were saying the same things every week, again and again and again. So we decided to publish a kind of short document. It's not got any kind of planning weight, but just on the common pitfalls. And the things down the left-hand side will be stuff that everybody already knows from this audience, of the kind of stuff that's the problems. Bins, we're constantly talking about bins, how people get to their bins. Can you get your bins out? Are the bins at the front or are they back? Do you have to go up and down a step, even though you're not supposed to, but often get built like that? We've got, the bottom right-hand image is of a ginnel, as they're called in Northamptonshire, which my crime prevention design advisors really like and want to have more of, rather than having the sort of typical route through close bordered fences, which we get a lot of proposed. But they are really hard to get house builders, volume house builders, to build. We have had some success with some. Barrett's have been open to the idea, but others much, much less so, and just point blank refuse to say that they will do it. Parking. Parking's always an issue. You'd think out in Northamptonshire, where you've got more space, that it would be easy, but it isn't. And there are just some photographs there of people parking where they shouldn't be parking, because clearly their parking isn't in the places they want it to be. So one of the things we do every year is we go back and monitor whether we are actually achieving any housing quality and whether we're achieving the ambitions of the core strategy. We're supposed to do that in the annual monitoring report. It was something that was required and now is no longer actually required, but we still go back and do it because we think it's really beneficial for us to learn what's working, what's not working. And actually, if you can go to a meeting with a house builder and say, this is a photograph of what you did here, do you really want to do this again? We certainly don't think you should. It speaks volumes. So we go back, any houses of more than 10, any schemes of more than 10 houses, we go back and assess against Building for Life and now against Building for Life 12. We did a really complicated method of trying to compare the original to the new. But we do a site visit, we take photographs, we do a parking survey to show whether people are parking where they're meant to be parking, and if they're not parking where they're meant to be parking, where they are parking. Which is based on something from the Space to Park website. And we publish the results with ticks and crosses saying good and bad. We have to be quite careful to say there are good and bad in each scheme rather than try and pick out all of the bad ones from one scheme so that we don't offend people too much. But the idea is a bit to offend people because they should realise what, need to go back and look at things. Top right, that is a recent scheme, or pretty recent scheme. 100% affordable housing. The layout of the housing was completely set by what the original affordable housing was, and it was knocking it down because there were problems, and hey presto, we've built back exactly the same problems. Bottom left is not affordable, but we shouldn't be building things like that. Bottom right is pretty good. That's in Kettering. It's got a nice little square, but actually if I turned 180 from that spot where I took the bottom right, what you see next to it is the middle one, where you've got mattresses behind the fence because you've got back gardens and close boarded fences backing onto the street. It's a difficult one to deal with, that one, because you've got an existing factory that's been converted. There's some good and some bad on that scheme. It's not straightforward to do, but we're going to take our councillors around that one to see what they make of it. And this is my little plan of cars parked in accordance with design and cars not parked in accordance with design. You've got your van up there at the top, parked on the pavement, and he's marked up in red outside house number 11, because he didn't want to park there, because where he was meant to park, because it's at the bottom of his garden, he can't see his van, it's got all his tools in it, it's his most valuable thing after his house. Why would he park it where he can't see it? So learning from that to make sure that we put parking where people want to park it so they'll use it. Across the 4 local authorities, we also have some networks to support each other in terms of shared training, and we have something called Design Officers Group. We have an annual design calendar which is online, and I put in every single design surgery for the entire year, every training event, every design officers group, so that people timetable it in their diaries for the whole year, and then we know everyone's booked, all the rooms are booked and everything. And those kind of things are a complete headache to do at the moment. That's what we're trying to write for this next year, but it's worth it because it means that all of those different people that are part of that development team are available and are there. Design Officers Group meets every 8 weeks, and we share our knowledge. The local authorities talk about what appeal decisions they've had to each other. I'm aware that those sorts of networks operate elsewhere, and particularly in London, where you've got lots of local authorities that are in close proximity to one another. But outside of London, I think that's much more variable. There used to be different networks that CABE used to facilitate, or Building for Life networks, but those have largely, I think, disappeared. And so trying to do things like this really helps support each other, particularly when you've got lots of local authorities where you might have one design officer if you're lucky, or a few people that are interested. Having their backup and that mutual reinforcement that this is making it sound like a battle, but it really is a battle. We do need to support each other. We also have presentations from the police, from the fire brigade. We've had presentations from Dark Skies campaign. People come and talk, Wildlife Trust, come and talk about their particular interest and what they feel is getting missed. And because we're 4 local authorities clubbing together, we can get in some shared training, because people like Historic England would come and do a presentation for a shared group that they might not want to do within one local authority. And we ran some Manual for Streets training, that kind of thing. We did have training budget as well from the Arts Council back in the day, which was pretty good. The other thing that we do is something called Site Visit Club, which is going to look at stuff. It's for officers and councillors. It's very informal. We try not to have mini buses. We try to get people to car share and get themselves there, because we're trying to keep the costs as low as possible. It's in Northamptonshire, but also around. So we've been to Accordia, you can see there. We've been to things. The middle one is the Velux Eco Homes in Rothwell and Kettering. And I think that one's Camborne. So we've been to stuff that's near us. We've been to Hampton and Peterborough, because again, that's near us. We've been to not just housing, we've been to some really massive B8 distribution sheds, because we've got quite a lot of pressure for those in Northamptonshire too. And they're really good for officers to talk to councillors. It's quite good at being combined. And they're good for people to see nice things, so they feel buoyed up. And it's also to see things they don't like and to talk about it. As I said, we've got 7 urban extensions, ranging from about 2,000 up to just over 5,000 houses in size, all at various stages in terms of actual houses on the ground. Nearly all of them have got either design codes adopted or are underway or planned. We're actually on the second iteration of one of the design codes for Prize Hall, which is the urban extension at Corby. And I guess from having been involved in not just the drafting work for some of those, but also the implementation of looking at the reserved matters and do they comply with the design code, the thing I would say is avoid the aspirational documents. They need to be a set of rules, because we've got lots of certainly the first few, they had a lot of photographs in of what it would be nice to have, but you can't enforce what's nice to have. And when times are very tight, you end up with pretty pictures that kind of sell what you might achieve, but you can't achieve it. We have regulating plans in all of them now, and they're really useful. But landscape still gets forgotten. Even in a design code, landscape's still getting forgotten, and it's something that we have to really push for. Hopefully, though, with more emphasis on SUDs, that will come more and more into the master planning and into the thought of the design codes. One of the things that was quite interesting is that we thought that the design codes were all about making sure you didn't have real conflicts between parcels or on either sides of the street. But actually, one of the things we learned as well is that you need to think about variety, because we're having more situations where we're having, say, one house builder looking to build 1,000 houses, or one application for 700 houses, and getting variety, and one design team for all of that, and trying to get variety into the design code is actually becoming more of an issue than trying to make sure it's got a cohesiveness to it. And the little picture in the middle is just, things like getting the spec of garages, what our minimum spec is, so that we can make sure that people can actually park their car and put stuff in the garage. We have had to tell certain house builders that their garages we don't count as garages, because you just cannot get what you need to get in them to count as a parking space. We're currently just about to start the examination of our core strategy. So we've had one of the first joint ones, and we've got a second joint one now, which the examination is going to start next week. And that's been done very much from a place shaping approach. We had some help from CABE on a strategic urban design project where we had a load of place shaping workshops, and we had these fantastic cartoons done by Joel Cooper, who recorded the place shaping workshops in loads and loads of amazing cartoons for us. The key things that came out there were loads of really interesting things that came out of it, but connectivity and character were absolutely critical to the kind of design philosophy for the core strategy. And so from that, we did what's called the urban structure study, which was analysis of the 11 towns in Northamptonshire, looking at what the problems were in terms of connectivity. And we did, because we couldn't afford space syntax, we did our own little assessment using Carl Kropp's system, where we colour-coded, sometimes just tracing paper, depending on how old school you are. The 4 local authorities went out and they looked at their streets. They went and saw which streets connected to each other, what were the streets that actually went somewhere, what was a dead end, which is blue, what was a loop, and went just back to where it started, which is purple, and red are the connecting ones. And that's Wellingborough. We also looked at where is the green infrastructure, and does that connect up? And started to try and get that spatial picture of how the towns actually work, what the skeleton of the place is. Our councillors absolutely love these plans because they understand the colours, they understand what it's trying to show them, and they can understand what it feels like when they're going around the place, why you can't get anywhere, or why the people in this particular bit go out to the town in the next borough rather than going to their town centre. They've been really, really useful, and that has had an impact on the policies that we've been able to write in this core strategy that's being examined next week. So we've got lots of things about connected networks, which is obviously all in Manual for Streets anyway, but having it with an evidence base about why that's a problem in your own town makes it a lot more powerful. And we then have got place shaping principles that go right down to where we've got strategic sites. So this isn't a housing site, but it's showing, the kind of that level of detail is actually in the core strategy. And we're going to take this on into our place shaping SPD, which is going to haven't written it yet, it's something that's underway, but those are the 5 broad themes of the design policy that's in this new core strategy, and those will be fleshed out in a much more detailed SPD with probably some daughter documents on specific things like SUDs and large infrastructure of where we're going to have that, and particularly large B8 distribution warehouses, because they're very difficult to fit into an urban fabric. Success. I said at the beginning when I was talking to the others that I feel a bit of a fraud, because I'm pretty sure what I'm doing is making things better, but it's certainly not the quality that I would like to see, even with a massive, massive battle. If it was sheer willpower, I'd be getting there, but it isn't. There's so much else going on. Viability is a significant issue in Northamptonshire. We have affordability is all down to different market conditions, but trying to get the sites to stack up, to deliver what you want to deliver, is a real challenge. And of course, all of that is in the face of a 5-year land supply headache for the local authorities. If they don't get the development happening quickly enough, they're going to be picked off in all their villages, which they're very concerned about. They have put all of their eggs in the baskets, really, of these urban extensions, because that's what they want to do. That's where they want to put all of their infrastructure. They're next to the towns. They have the most logic, rather than in much smaller villages. But at the same time, they have a massive infrastructure burden with them. And so achieving that and achieving quality is really, really difficult, but it's something that we're at least working together on, and I think the battle will continue. Thank you.